Hello. So, in today's lesson, we are looking at what happens in the Yalta and the Potsdam Conference. You should have already done the Tehran Conference of 1943. We're now looking at these two conferences that are held in 1945. We've got two learning objectives. We're going to try to understand what was agreed at the Yalta and Potsdam Conferences of 1945 and to understand the disagreements at these conferences and why this led to tension between the East and West. Now, you've got a quiz to complete in Google Classrooms at the end of this lesson. Please make sure that you read the questions carefully. You'll only get one chance at answering them. And as always, any questions you've got, feel free to contact me, gbrown@stopsleyhighschool.co.uk. So, the same three leaders who met in Tehran in 1943 also met in Yalta in 1945. Do you remember who these leaders were and which countries they represented? Well done if you remembered Churchill from Great Britain, Roosevelt from the USA, and Stalin from the USSR. So why are they meeting in 1945? Why did they need to meet again? Well, the war was going well for the Allies at this point. The planned D-Day attack that had been planned and talked about in the Tehran Conference had been a success. And so Britain and the USA had landed in France as shown in this picture in 1944, and they were now pushing the Germans back towards Berlin. At the same time, the Soviet Union had defeated the Germans in the Soviet Union and were now pushing them back, freeing them and controlling much of Eastern Europe. Now you can see this in this map. So, for example, in Poland, they pushed the German soldiers out of Poland but kept their armies there afterwards. These countries were not free yet. In fact, Stalin was determined to keep control of these countries you can see on the map in pink to act as a cushion against any future attack by Germany. So, this meeting was to discuss what to do with Germany and Europe after the war. Well, what did they agree on at the Yalta Conference? Now, this first point is key. They said that Germany would be divided into 4 zones. They would each be controlled by a different country. The USA, the USSR, Britain, and France. And the idea was they would work together to rebuild a new, strong, peaceful Germany. But there were some issues with this, and so they decided they would confirm this after the war. This hasn't been confirmed yet. Now, Berlin would also be divided in the same way into 4 zones. Nazi war criminals would be prosecuted, and the Nazi Party would be banned. The United Nations would be set up, and this would mean in the future people could talk about their problems rather than just going to war, and this would replace the League of Nations. Stalin agreed that he would join the war against Japan with the USA. He said he would do it 3 months after Germany's defeat. And Stalin agreed there would be free elections in Eastern Europe in future to decide governments. So he said that the countries that he had freed, such as Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, these countries in pink on the map, he said that he would make sure there was a free election to decide governments. He wouldn't control them by force. So what did they disagree on here? Well, the first one was Germany. Stalin wanted Germany to pay huge reparations. When we say reparations, we mean compensation. He wanted Germany to be permanently crippled, permanently weak. And you must understand it from Stalin's point of view. They had invaded Russia twice since 1914. And a lot of work you looked at with Stalin in the Russia course, where we saw the industrialization, collectivization, and modernization of Russia, a lot of that had been destroyed. And Stalin had lost about 20 million Russians during World War II. So you can understand the hatred that Stalin would have of Germany. But the USA and Britain disagreed. They said, no, we've got to learn from the past. The last time they had severely punished Germany with the Treaty of Versailles, it had led to Germany being poor and Hitler taking charge as a result. They said they had to learn from history. If they made the country weak and embarrassed it, it would create the conditions for another dictator to take control. However, Stalin felt they just wanted a strong capitalist ally against the Soviets in the future. And so this decision was delayed until the Potsdam Conference. They basically said, look, let's win the war first of all and then decide what to do. So Germany and Berlin being divided up into 4 was outlined in the Yalta Conference, but it wasn't confirmed yet. And there were arguments over Poland as well. Stalin said he should control Poland. His army had liberated or freed it from the Nazis, and it was important to protect Poland. It was important to protect the USSR from future attacks. If he had control of Poland, it would mean that countries would have to go through Poland really to attack the Soviet Union, and that's what Germany had done twice before. Stalin said it was important he controlled Poland to protect the Soviet Union, protect his people. But the West convinced Stalin to agree to hold free elections in the East instead. So Stalin said he would not control Poland, but he would let Poland decide its own future with free elections when the time was right. Okay, so the final of our three conferences is Potsdam, and it was held in July 1945 in Potsdam, Germany. Now, what does this tell us about the war if they're having a conference in Germany? Well, the war was over, and this meeting would now plan what to do with Europe. But quite a lot of things had changed from February to July of 1945. There had been 3 big changes in just a few months. Now, firstly, sadly, Roosevelt had died, and you probably saw in the Yalta pictures that he wasn't looking particularly healthy, and Roosevelt was replaced by Harry S. Truman. Churchill was replaced by Clement Attlee. He lost the general election in 1945. And the scientists in the USA had successfully tested the atomic bomb, and this happened the day after the start of the Potsdam Conference. And people believe that Truman did this on purpose so that he could tell Stalin about the bomb during the conference. So the Potsdam Conference, what was agreed here? Well, they confirmed that Germany and Berlin would be divided into 4 zones. Just like they discussed at Yalta, it was confirmed here, and this would be controlled by the Allies. They said they would re-establish democracy in Germany. Don't forget, the people of Germany hadn't had democracy for over a decade since Hitler took control. So Germany would now experience free elections, freedom of the press, and freedom of speech again. Now, each of the 4 countries that we can see here, would take reparations from its own zone. This meant they would take equipment and materials to help repay for the damage during the war. The Soviet Union, because it had suffered the most, got the most in reparations. But the problem was the Soviet Union also controlled the poorest area of Germany, so it'd be tough for them to get materials back. The Western zones said they would give a quarter of the goods that they made in their zones of Germany to support the Soviet Union. So they are getting their reparations, but it's not a huge amount of money this time. The Nazi Party was banned. Leading Nazis were put on trial in Nuremberg in 1946. And they all agreed they would participate fully in the United Nations to keep the world peace. So, what did they disagree on? Well, Stalin still wanted Germany to pay huge reparations. And again, 20 million Russians had died during the war. This would have destroyed Germany completely. However, the West refused this. And actually, when I say 20 million Russians had died during the war, that was just freeing the other countries from Germany at this point. It was a huge, huge loss for the Russians. However, Truman was concerned himself. And Truman said, okay, USSR, okay, Russia, we notice you have still kept your armies in the countries you've liberated that you freed. You're effectively controlling these countries that you can see here in pink. Now, Truman tried to pressure Stalin into ensuring free elections. He basically said, do you guarantee free elections? Stalin refused to submit to this pressure, though. Stalin refused to give in. And the final cause of tension was Truman told Stalin about the bomb testing. He basically spoke to Stalin and he said, by the way, we tested a bomb in the New Mexico desert. It's, the most powerful bomb ever created. It can wipe out anything within 3 miles. Now, people think Truman was doing this on purpose. He deliberately waited for testing the bomb so he could announce it to Stalin during the conference. They just tested it to make Stalin panic, to put pressure on Stalin. Truman and Stalin didn't get on at all. Truman wanted to get far tougher with Stalin. Now, Stalin plays a poker face here. Stalin basically says, okay, well, that's good news for a weapon, that's good. It doesn't show the fear that Truman wants, which frustrates him. Now, Stalin is worried about the atomic bomb because Stalin knows that America will be able to dictate to Russia what to do. They will be able to threaten Russia with dropping an atomic bomb on them unless Russia matches them and comes up with their own atomic bomb. One problem, the Russian science is behind, possibly because Stalin purged a lot of his scientists. Russia would now need to develop the bomb quickly, so the atomic bomb causes tension. And so by the end of the Potsdam Conference, the Grand Alliance of Britain, the USA, and USSR was starting to show tension. Now, why was this? Well, they had been forced to work together in 1943 to defeat Hitler. This was what united the East and West. It was having a common enemy. That was it. That was the only thing that united them. They've got two completely different ways of life, communist and capitalist. There's nothing else in common. And now Hitler had been defeated, it became clear that both sides had little in common, and distrust of each other began to grow, as you saw the USA and USSR become the two superpowers in the world. Okay, so your task for today then, please complete the quiz in Google Classrooms to show your knowledge of the Yalta and Potsdam conferences. If you need to go back at any point, Yalta is in yellow and the Potsdam slides are in red. Once you finish that, please make sure you submit your quiz into your teacher. Just press submit with the quiz afterwards. They'll get the score. Any questions you've got, feel free to contact me, gbrown@stopsleyhighschool.co.uk. And all it remains for me to say is, as always, thank you very much for completing this lesson today. Please look after yourselves, try and get some fresh air and exercise where you can, and I will see you soon. All the best. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.